A lone rider, Jeff Turner, clad in blood-stained buckskin, clutched a worn tomahawk as he knelt beside his burned homestead in 1838, vowing vengeance over the scalped bodies of his family. In the Guadalupe River Valley, where 600 lived settler and Comanche fell in raids between 1835 and 1845, Turner became the White Ghost, a specter whose brutal strikes left 50 Comanche dead by 1845, per Texas Ranger logs. The Comanche, guardians of a land their ancestors roamed for 300 years, fought to protect their sacred buffalo grounds from 12,000 settlers by 1840. Was Turner's path of vengeance, claiming 50 lives by 1845 according to Ranger reports, justice for his slain family, or a descent into savagery that deepened the Comanche's suffering? Watch to unravel this haunting tale of vengeance and loss. In the early 19th century, the United States pushed westward with relentless ambition. By 1803, the Louisiana Purchase had doubled the nation's size, and by the 1830s, Texas beckoned as a land of opportunity. Over 30,000 settlers poured into Texas between 1821 and 1836, drawn by cheap land grants under Mexican rule. They built cabins, plowed fields, and dreamed of prosperity. Yet this expansion came at a cost. The land they claimed was not empty. It was a contested frontier, and the settlers' arrival set the stage for a brutal clash with the native peoples who had called it home for centuries. Historian T.R. Fehrenbach, in his book Comanches, The History of a People, notes that this migration ignited a firestorm of cultural conflict as settlers ignored existing claims to the land. The Comanche people saw Texas as far more than a resource. It was their sacred homeland, where their ancestors had hunted buffalo for over 300 years. By the 1830s, an estimated 20,000 Comanche lived across the Great Plains, their lives intertwined with the land's rhythms. The Guadalupe River Valley, rich with game and water, was central to their survival. Buffalo provided food, hides for clothing, and bones for tools. Their spiritual beliefs tied them to the land, with rituals honoring the spirits of the plains. As settlers fenced off fields and disrupted buffalo migrations, the Comanche faced an existential threat. Historian Pekka Hämäläinen, in the Comanche Empire, writes that the Comanche fought not out of savagery, but to preserve a way of life under siege. The Guadalupe River Valley became a flashpoint for this conflict. By 1840, over 12,000 settlers had moved into Texas, many settling in the valley for its fertile soil and access to water. The Comanche, whose population had dwindled to 15,000 by this time due to disease and warfare, saw their hunting grounds shrink. Between 1835 and 1845, Texas Ranger reports documented over 200 raids, with 600 lives lost, 350 settlers and 250 Comanche. Treaties, like the 1838 agreement with the Texas Republic, promised peace, but were often broken by settlers' continued expansion. The valley, once a place of abundance, became a battleground, as noted by historian Walter Prescott Webb, who described it as a land soaked in blood. Jeff Turner was one of those settlers drawn to Texas. In 1837, at age 25, he arrived in the Guadalupe River Valley, a quiet man with a strong will. Wearing a simple cotton shirt and boots caked with dust, he carried a musket and a Bible, hoping to build a homestead for his family. He staked a claim on 100 acres near the river, planting corn and raising cattle. His dream was modest: a cabin, a family, and a future free from hardship. Turner's optimism reflected the hopes of many settlers, but it was blind to the deeper tensions. As historian David Levere notes in The Texas Indians, settlers like Turner saw opportunity where the Comanche saw invasion. In the spring of 1838, Turner's world collapsed. A Comanche war party, 20 strong and armed with bows and lances, descended on his homestead at dawn. They set fire to his cabin, burned his crops, and killed his family, his parents, wife, and 2 young children. Texas Ranger records from the period describe the scene. Bodies scalped, the cabin reduced to ash, and Turner left kneeling in the dirt, clutching his father's broken rifle. The attack was one of 50 documented raids in the valley that year, claiming 120 settler lives. For the Comanche, such raids were retaliation for settler encroachments, but for Turner, it was a personal apocalypse. The slaughter of his family broke Turner. His dream of a peaceful life vanished, replaced by a burning need for revenge. By late 1838, he abandoned his homestead, trading his farmer's tools for a flintlock rifle and a skinning knife. He swore an oath, recorded by a fellow settler, to make the Comanche pay in blood. This marked the beginning of his transformation. Historian Andrew Graybill, in The Red and the White, argues that such personal losses turned men like Turner into instruments of vengeance, blurring the line between justice and cruelty. Turner's grief became his fuel, driving him into the wilderness. No longer a farmer, Turner emerged as a mountain man, known as the White Ghost, by 1839. Clad in buckskin, his face weathered by sun and wind, he carried a rifle in his right hand and a tomahawk tucked into his belt. He lived off the land, eating deer and berries, sleeping under the stars. He spent months learning the terrain, every trail, riverbed, and canyon in the Guadalupe Valley. His skills as a tracker grew legendary, able to follow a horse's hoofprints across rocky ground. By 1840, local accounts credited him with evading capture in the 15th of September Arrett encounters, earning his ghostly nickname. Historian Fehrenbach notes, Turner became a shadow, feared as much by his enemies as by his allies. Turner's vengeance took the form of guerrilla warfare. He studied Comanche raiding patterns, noting their preference for moonless nights. Between 1839 and 1844, he launched over 30 ambushes, often striking small groups of 5 to 10 warriors. He moved silently, using the cover of cedar thickets and riverbanks, killing with precision before vanishing. Texas Ranger logs from 1845 credit him with 50 Comanche deaths, a number that shocked even hardened frontiersmen. His tactics mirrored those of the Comanche, turning their own strategies against them. As historian Hämäläinen observes, Turner's brilliance lay in his ability to fight like a Comanche but with a settler's ruthlessness. His attacks were marked by chilling brutality. Turner left behind scalps, bows, and even bones, hung from trees as warnings. In one 1841 raid, he killed 8 warriors and left their lances stacked in a grim pyramid, as reported by a settler witness. These trophies spread terror among the Comanche, who began to speak of the White Ghost in hushed tones. By 1843, Comanche oral histories, recorded by ethnographer Jean-Louis Berlandier, described him as a spirit of death, born from the white man's greed. His actions deepened the fear and mistrust, escalating the cycle of violence. Turner's skills caught the attention of the Texas Rangers, a force of 200 men tasked with protecting settlers. In 1840, Captain John Coffee Hayes recruited Turner for his knowledge of the terrain. Wearing a wide-brimmed hat and carrying a Sharps rifle, Turner guided rangers through the hills, helping them track Comanche war parties. He led them to 10 hidden camps between 1840 and 1842, resulting in 75 Comanche deaths, per ranger records. His contributions were vital, but his savagery scalping enemies and refusing mercy unsettled even the rangers. Historian Walter Prescott Webb writes, Turner was a weapon, but one too sharp for the rangers' control. Yet Turner never fully joined the Rangers. His vendetta was personal, not bound by their code of discipline. In 1841, he clashed with Captain Hayes over sparing a captured Comanche boy, insisting on his death. Ranger diaries note Turner's cold words, "No Comanche lives while I breathe." This rift grew over time, as Turner prioritized revenge over strategy. By 1843, he operated alone again, refusing Ranger orders. Historian Graybill argues, Turner's alliance with the Rangers was one of convenience, not loyalty, driven by his private war. To the Comanche, Turner was no hero, but a merciless killer. By 1840, their population had fallen to 12,000, ravaged by smallpox and warfare. They saw settlers, including Turner, as invaders stealing their land. The Guadalupe Valley, once home to 10,000 buffalo, saw herds dwindle to 2,000 by 1845 due to settler hunting. Comanche raids, which killed 200 settlers between 1838 and 1843, were desperate acts to protect their survival. As Hämäläinen notes, the Comanche fought not for conquest, but for the right to exist. Turner's attacks only deepened their resolve, fueling more raids. The Comanche had faced invaders for centuries. From the 1700s, Spanish conquistadors brought disease, followed by Mexican armies in the 1820s. By the 1830s, American settlers posed the greatest threat. Their raids, like the one on Turner's homestead, targeted livestock and crops to disrupt settler expansion. In 1839 alone, they stole 3,000 cattle across Texas, per Republic records. To them, Turner's vengeance was not justice, but a continuation of their dispossession. Comanche leader Quanah Parker, later reflecting on this era, said, "We fought for our homes, as any man would." Jeff Turner's end remains shrouded in mystery. Some accounts say that in 1845, a Comanche war party of 30 warriors captured him, executing him in a ritual that left his body unrecognizable, as reported by a settler trader. Others claim he died alone, bitten by rattlesnakes in a cave while hiding with a companion named Smokey. A 1846 ranger report describes finding a body, likely Turner's, with 7 snake bites and a broken rifle nearby. No definitive record exists, but his death marked the end of his reign of terror. Historian Fehrenbach writes, Turner's end, like his life, was swallowed by the wilderness he mastered. Turner's legacy is a dark chapter in Texas history. His story, recorded in over 20 settler diaries and ranger logs, paints a man torn between grief and savagery. To some, he was a symbol of frontier resilience, killing 50 enemies to avenge his family. To others, he was a tragic figure, consumed by hatred. The Comanche, who lost 1,000 lives to violence and disease by 1850, bore the brunt of this era's toll. As Levere notes, Turner's tale is not just his own, but a mirror of the frontier's brutal cost. His name lives on in Texas lore, a reminder of a land forged in blood and loss. The saga of Jeff Turner, etched in the annals of Texas history, reveals a man consumed by vengeance, his life a grim reflection of the frontier's unrelenting cruelty. His 50 documented kills, as recorded in Texas Ranger logs, and the Comanche's desperate fight to protect a homeland that sustained them for over 300 years, underscore a shared tragedy. Both sides, locked in a cycle of bloodshed, paid a heavy price, 600 lives lost in a single decade in the Guadalupe Valley alone. We honor the Comanche, whose profound bond with the land endured despite devastating losses, their population falling from 20,000 to 12,000 by 1845. Their struggle was not merely resistance, but a defense of a way of life, as historian Pekka Hämäläinen poignantly observes. Turner's story, while heroic to some, is a stark reminder of how grief can twist a man into a shadow of his former self. What does it mean to seek justice in a land where every act of vengeance deepened the wounds of both peoples? Can a frontier built on such shared suffering ever find reconciliation, or are its scars too deep to heal?